You ever get that feeling of déjà vu when you look at the news? That little sense that, hey, we've kind of seen these tensions and these conflicts before? Well, there's a really powerful TED Talk by analyst Henny Ozikukier that says we should be paying very close attention to that feeling. So we're going to break down his argument piece by piece and explore the unsettling historical rhymes he's uncovered and what they might mean for all of us. So let's just get right to the heart of it. Kukier kicks things off with a question that's pretty much impossible to ignore. And yeah, it's provocative for sure, but it's also on a lot of our minds, isn't it? His point isn't to scare anyone, but to offer a method, a way of looking at today through the lens of the past. And this right here is the absolute key to his entire argument. He says that if we just grab random historical examples that look like today's headlines, we're really just confirming our own biases. So instead, he proposes something way more rigorous, a consistent framework. This is all about finding the deep, underlying patterns of history, not just getting distracted by the noisy headlines of the day. Okay, so what is this framework he's talking about? Well, Cookier breaks down the anatomy of global tension into four key areas. You can think of it like a diagnostic tool he uses to examine the periods just before World War I, before World War II, and right now. And here they are: social, economic, political, and military. The whole idea is to apply these four lenses to each time period, consistently, to see if history is actually rhyming. This gives us a really clear roadmap. So let's dive into the evidence, starting with the first two. First up, we're looking at the social and the economic dimensions. Cookier puts these two together because they kind of get at the same thing: how a society is feeling on the inside and how those feelings start to shape its relationship with the rest of the world. This is where the groundwork for conflict is so often laid. This slide, wow, it really brings the parallel to life. Before the World Wars, you had the Industrial Revolution causing this huge societal earthquake, right? People's jobs were vanishing, cities were exploding, all the old certainties were just crumbling. Cookier's point is that we're living through a very similar earthquake right now, with AI and the digital age, and it's kicking up the exact same kind of anxiety. And here's the really dangerous part. All this progress, all this incredible change, it also creates this deep insecurity. It creates resentment. And what his analysis shows is that historically, that kind of widespread anxiety is the perfect breeding ground for extreme ideologies. The kind that ultimately lead to war. This quote is the perfect bridge to the economic dimension. See, there was this popular idea before World War I that countries that trade together, they stay together. That a war between, say, Britain and Germany was impossible because it was just, well, bad for business. But that assumption turned out to be tragically wrong. And this slide lays out that historical lesson perfectly. Before World War II, nations like Germany and Japan decided that relying on global trade actually made them weak, so they turned inward, trying to become totally self-sufficient. Does that sound familiar at all? Because in the wake of COVID and the war in Ukraine, that's exactly what we're seeing today, this global retreat into economic nationalism. Okay, so now let's move on to the final two dimensions of the framework, the political and the military. This is all about how nations fracture from within and how they start to line up with others on the world stage. Cookier makes a really important distinction here. He's not just talking about political disagreement, the normal back and forth. He's talking about a dangerous escalation, from a heated debate to a point where people completely lose faith in the system, and then to its most extreme form, actual political violence. And this timeline is genuinely chilling. The assassination that kicked off World War I didn't just come out of nowhere. It followed years of political violence. The same thing was true in pre-Nazi Germany, which was plagued by political murders and militias. And today, Cookier points to the disturbing rise in political attacks in places like the US and Germany and says, listen, this is history rhyming, and we need to listen. This brings us to the final piece of this whole puzzle, the military dimension. And the key insight here is this: world wars don't just happen. They start as regional fires. It's the web of alliances that acts like gasoline, turning a local conflict into a global inferno. And this brings us to the verdict. This is maybe the most sobering part of Cookier's entire analysis. Because when he looks at the alliance structures of the 1930s and compares them to today, he finds a parallel that he argues isn't just similar, but in some ways, it's even more dangerous. Just take a second to look at this comparison. It's pretty stunning. We have this image of the 1930s Axis powers as this one big, unified bloc. But the reality is, they were often rivals, even working against each other. Cookier's argument is that today's alliance of authoritarian states is the complete opposite. They are deeply, deeply integrated.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. This is what's happening on the ground. I mean, look at the connections. North Korea is arming Russia. China is the economic backbone for all of them. It's propping up North Korea, buying sanctioned oil from Iran, and supplying Russia with the components it needs for its war machine. It is a fully functioning, interconnected network.
So the core warning of the entire talk is this: the scales are tipping. On one side, you have an alliance of aggressors that is getting stronger and more unified by the day. And on the other, you have an alliance of democracies that seems to be getting more divided. And as Kukier warns, history teaches us that this kind of imbalance is a massive invitation for aggression. So after laying out this pretty heavy analysis, what's the takeaway? I mean, it would be easy to just feel hopeless, but that's not Kukier's point at all. He's very clear that this framework is not about predicting some inevitable future. It's about giving us a map of the past. It helps us see the patterns, connect the dots. The whole point is that if we can recognize these historical rhymes, then maybe, just maybe, we can consciously choose to write a different ending to the song. And it all comes back to this famous quote: the names change, the dates change, the technologies change, but the fundamental patterns of human society, our anxieties, our ambitions, our alliances, they just keep echoing. The question Kukier leaves us with is a simple one. Are we paying attention to the rhyme this time?